Hey again, everyone, and welcome back to the channel for the end of week recap, where we take a look at what's going on in the six scale world, whether it's news stories, whether it's announcements, releases, and we've gotten a ton of releases this week. Unfortunately for me, three of the four are definitely coming home. So hopefully all those final payment invoices don't hit at the same time, along with all the third party stuff coming in. But there's definitely a lot to discuss. There are a couple of announcements I want to touch base with. One of them was surprising, and I don't think a lot of us expected it. And then, of course, we've got some news stories to discover. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk about Hot Toys, obviously, J&D making a bit of a splash. Not a splash, but sort of showing signs of life. I think that's the best way to put it, because I thought they were done after the fiasco, or what seemed like the poor reception to the Joker and to the Bruce Wayne two-pack that they had. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, for news stories too, I am going to get a little bit into some six scale related but six scale adjacent topics. Hopefully this video won't be overly long, but there's a lot to discuss, so just bear with me. I'll try to put chapter times as well. So look, without further ado, we're going to start with Hot Toys, and we're going to start with their first announcement, which was the Jane Foster Thor figure. If you've followed my channel for any bit of time, you know that I'm first and foremost a Marvel collector. Then I do dabble in, like, I do have Damn Toys Gangsters Kingdom, or Poker Kingdom, what it's called now. I do dabble a little bit in Star Wars and DC, but Marvel is really my thing. So when Hot Toys kind of released that teaser image of what was coming next, I knew I was in trouble, because I've got pretty much all the Marvel figures on order, and Jane Foster is one of those figures. Now, I'm pretty impressed with the line overall that we've gotten so far with the Thor, which I still have to get, actually. I'm just trying to get him on a deal. The Gore and the Valkyrie were amazing, right? And the Korg that Infamous made, well, not Hot Toys, it definitely adds to the line. So we ended up getting 5 figures from this line when all things are said and done. And Thor, Mighty Thor, was the last one that was remaining. So look, I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty happy with what we're getting. So if you order the exclusive, you get both a helmeted version, a damaged helmeted version, and then the sculpted, just unmasked version. And this, I remember Hot Toys made a big deal when they kind of revealed her along with Shuri and with the new Tom Holland sculpt, because it was almost like they were showcasing that they were going into the hyper realistic route and definitely improving their sculpts. And I think this still shows that, right? Focusing on the unmasked sculpt for a little bit. I think, first of all, the likeness is there, which is something that we've been talking about recently, where figures get teased and the likeness just isn't there at all. So it's nice to see that we do have that likeness here. The detail in the hair, Hot Toys, when it comes to their sculpted hair, is really impressive, right? What they've managed to do is great. Now, the concern with something like this, when you see the longer hair, is, are you going to be able to turn the head back and forth or get some poses? So that's always a concern. Some of the earlier figures had some harder plastic. Newer pieces, like the Black Widows, for example, well, and even the Kate Bishops, while you can turn it, there's some flex and some give to the hair, which helps posability. But the likeness is there. It's pretty impressive. For me, what's surprising, when you look at her, is I wasn't expecting to like the helmeted look as much as I ended up liking it. It looks pretty impressive. And looking at the line here, right, as a whole, this is where Hot Toys really delivered some amazing figures from a movie that I think a lot of people were disappointed in, including myself, right? I didn't enjoy it, but after what was Ragnarok, right, coming to this one, it seemed like it depended way too much on humor. Not that humor is a bad thing, right? But it was just a little too much. So seeing the line together and throwing Korg in the middle, right? This is going to be a pretty nice looking line. And the fact that Hot Toys gave us as many figures as they did, I'm not complaining. As a Marvel fan, I'm getting all of them. So, and Gore, stunning figure, and so is Valkyrie. So this is a nice addition to what we're getting here. Look, I think even the mask sculpt with the detail behind the eyes is great. I like the detail on Mjolnir. When the prototype came out, it was impressive. I wanted to get it, right. The draped cape with the wire, right, is going to give you tons of posability options. And I'm trying to find the sculpt. Look, these lightning effects we've seen before with Mjolnir. That's nothing new. But the one that I really like, that I'm trying to get, is this one with the kind of deconstructed Mjolnir. I'm a sucker for those kind of details. and it's nice to kind of see it in hand, and even the posability for this figure. Now the shoulders aren't seamless; they're definitely jointed, but with the armor, it's hidden a little bit, and then you get the seamless arms. It looks great, right? She looks fantastic. So I think Hot Toys did a great job. I'm part of me is debating how I'm going to showcase her because I think this helmeted look actually looks pretty cool. But at the same time, look, this one I'm not as crazy about the battle damage one. It's nice to have, but I don't know that it's essential. But going back to the unmasked sculpt, that's also pretty nice. And if you have Padme, I think this one is definitely look, I don't have that in hand, but just based on the pictures, it looks like it's a bit improved in terms of likeness. So to have that fully on display, unless you're going to create a Jane Foster custom, right, without the armor, this also looks pretty cool with her holding the helmet. So lots of options here. I think Hot Toys did a great job here on a figure and a line that maybe didn't deserve as much attention as it ultimately got. But now, keeping on with announcements, the next one that's exciting, and also keeping on with kind of the Hot Toys Marvel, is the Iron Man Mark 6 with Gantry. When I saw this 2.0 get announced, my first instinct, like a lot of you, is here we go, another Iron Man, right? And then I saw the Gantry, and look, maybe I don't want to say it's a dreamer in me, but the collector in me saw that gantry as a diorama and thought that is going to be one of the most incredible pieces you could have in a display, just from a size perspective, and people are going to gravitate to it. So I wanted to have it, right? And I ordered it. Of course, now looking at the pictures, I'm reminded of the fact that this is going to be a big piece, right? It's really a centerpiece. Um, but still, it looks amazing. And I think Hot Toys kills it with the armors, right? If it's Iron Man, you know Hot Toys is going to do a great job with it. This gantry is impressive, right? I have the older gantry in hand. It also looks very brutish, right? It's a little bit more brute, whereas this is definitely refined. It looks great. I think the posability you can get exposing all these different panels with all the intricate inner workings and having the different arms holding things like the helmet, like this look right here with the helmet deploying out, that's pretty stunning. So I think the flexibility that you're getting with this figure and with the display is pretty amazing. Now, this from a depth perspective is pretty insane. From a height and width perspective, kind of nuts. I love that it's USB powered because you're definitely going to want to see this, right? With all the blue and the stair lights, it's definitely going to come to life. This is a piece that's going to be pretty impressive. And then the Iron Man itself, what's there to say? It's the Mark 6. It's a classic suit, right? Everybody loves it. The one thing that I'm iffy on, and I was always iffy even during the announcements, was the sculpt. Now this has a bit of a smirk, right? So there's a little bit of personality that they're trying to add in here. But is it the best Tony Stark sculpt we've gotten? I could definitely see the likeness, but it's almost like they went up maybe even a little too old with all the wrinkles. I'll wait to see it in hand, right? From and you could this is a great view to see, right? Here it looks a little bit like too much, and then from this site it actually looks better. So maybe it's even something to do with the rolling eye systems, right? Depending on which direction you get them. So this is definitely something that I'll see in hand. For me, it's something that I think I'd want to display the sculpt. I have so many Iron Mans with like the helmet. So I think having kind of the helmet being removed and showcasing all those intricate details is going to be cool. So again, this is an expensive piece, an expensive figure and set, but it is coming home. And I think Hot Toys did a great job. So I'm looking forward to getting this one in hand. And we're not done with Hot Toys yet, because while not Marvel related, they also did finally release Neytiri. So last week we got Jake Sully, and I love Avatar, right? I thought James Cameron did a great job. It's a simple story. At least the first one was very much a simple story. I have friends who keep on talking about the giant blue Smurfs. So it is what it is, right? But that first Jake Sully from the original Avatar that Hot Toys did, it was a clunker. It sat for a while, and you were able to get it for some time after release. Um, I love it, and it's one of the figures because of the sheer scale. They're at about 18 inches, right? They tower over your 6-inch figures, but or sorry, your 12-inch figures. But because of the scale, people just naturally gravitate towards it, right? Even the gun is massive to go along with the size of the figure, right? And the Navi. But one of the biggest issues I always had with that original movie was that we never got Neytiri, and Jake and Neytiri definitely seem like a pair that belongs together, and I think Hot Toys remedied that right now. So seeing the two together, I think Jake was great, right? I said he looked awesome, but seeing both figures together, I think that's where the display is really going to come to life, especially when you see Jake, who's still a little bit more human, right, with the more modern rifles, the kit that he's got, and you see Neytiri with the bow and arrow, which has some, again, intricate details with the feathers, and the look of her overall, and the look of her eyes. This is going to be an impressive looking release. I know it's not for everybody. Again, not cheap, especially if you got the deluxe base with the light up features. But looking at the two together, if you're a fan of the movie, it's something a little bit different. And we usually ask Hot Toys to give us something different, right? That seems to always be the rallying cry that we have, is give us something else other than Marvel, other than Iron Man, other than Star Wars, or a Trooper Star Wars at least. So it's nice to see them give us something like this. Now, biggest criticism here that I've seen, exposed joints. I personally don't mind. With the other Jake, it hasn't been an issue for me. I get it, right? Seamless would be better and would help give you more of that realism that you're used to. But for what we're getting here, still pretty impressive and pretty amazing. So I think they did a great job. I think she looks great. Can't wait to get both in hand. I'm glad that both released so close together, so we'll be able to pair them together. But just great release. Again, I don't know that there's much demand for more, right? These are two of the main characters. The only thing would be Colonel I was gonna say Quaritch, right? With his in his Navi suit would have been probably one of the coolest to get as a villain. Maybe we'll get him from one of the sequel movies. Uh, the fact that Hot Toys is continuing to do these figures, it shows me that there's still some kind of a demand, right? And I love the base, right? You've got to imagine, because this is the same thing that happened with the other Jake. While the base looks simple and small, it's also in scale with this massive figure, right? So the light up features here, especially with the aquatic theme, they're going to be great. So I'm looking forward to getting these in hand and reviewing these for you. But again, Hot Toys just continuing on with this trend of giving you release after release after release, but they're not done. And this is technically not Hot Toys, right? But it's their offshoot brand, which is what is it, Hono Studios. So let me find it so I can share it. So let's start with the release first, which is the Wolverine. Now, the whole crux of Hono is affordability, right? It's a more affordable entry level product, and you can kind of see it with this. The suit, for example, in this, it's pretty straightforward, right? It's not as intricate as the MCU suits that we've gotten. It's not as intricate as even the video game suits we've gotten, but it's very much a comic accurate look. And even the packaging is a little more straightforward, right? They're definitely cutting costs to give you a more affordable product. And the look of it, though, I'm not going to lie, he looks great, right? The fact that you can recreate the poses from the comic covers are great. The arms look fantastic, right? I don't know if these are just rubber or they're silicone, and silicone is probably a little more expensive than what they want, but they look awesome, right? They give you that comic accurate looking suit. And then obviously the blades, they're plastic, so you're not getting that die cast that we normally get now, but that's fine, and they're definitely exaggerated for what the product is. But then even the sculpt, right? You're just getting a mask sculpt with different faceplates. They look great. It's a very simple figure. Posability, it looks like he can get some poses. They don't go too crazy with him, so I wouldn't go expecting necessarily Spider-Man level figure, but you'd see in hand. And obviously he's not going to have greater than maybe a 90-degree bend or slightly 90-degree bend, but you can still get some decent poses out of him. He's very entry level, right? For me, here's where I'll tell you where I stand with Hono. It's going to come down to aesthetics, because you've got Present Toys and Soosoo teasing that they're going to do some. Whether or not this figure and the release of this figure dissuades them from pursuing the line, that's another question, right? But I think I can wait, because if you look at, for example, the Present Toys Cyclops, yes, I get it, it's not licensed, or even the Present Toys Magneto. there's a little bit more detail to the suits there because Present Toys kind of took on a little bit of creative license to do some things a little bit differently, and I kind of like the way they look. So I'm not necessarily in a rush to get these, and I don't think they're going to sit around forever, but I think I'll still be able to get them for a decent price. It's not to take away from the figure. I think it looks great. I do think these backdrops are nice, but they are going to be space killers. But if this is all you're collecting, having those comic covers looks pretty good. And then the box, right? Listen, I'm not much of a box person. I will say, and maybe this is also part of the theme, he does, other than the arms and maybe the face plates, he does look a little bit more toyish. So it's not quite Hot Toys. And I think that's part of the point, right? But not having this in hand, maybe in hand it would be different. It's a cool release. For me, I'm on the fence if I'm going to get this. So definitely of the releases, um, at least right now, 3 out of 4. But now that brings us into announcements, which is where we get the surprise. So let's stick with Hono because we got, and we have a lot of tabs open, which is why it's taking me a while to find them. All right. So this was kind of, I had asked on a group, I had asked, what we think we're going to get tonight? Are we going to get Deadpool? Are we going to get Soul or Kamar from The Acolyte? That was a little bit tongue in cheek, right? Because I don't know that we're getting anything from that show. I could be wrong. Or are we getting something crazy like Jar Jar, right? I had said something that was totally unexpected. I'm going to say this was totally unexpected. So Hono is giving us a Spider-Man in a symbiote suit. And the reason I say it's unexpected is because the previous tease Hono had was for the Thor figure. Not to say it's not coming, but this one kind of came out of nowhere. So look, this is one where I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not as impressed. And maybe that's part of the cost, right? It's 175. So all in, it's probably a little over $200 once you put in taxes and shipping if you're buying in the US. Look, it's a fabric suit, right? That's probably the appeal. So super cheap. The emblem, the Spider-Man emblem, looks like it's screen printed on. You do get swappable eyepieces, although it's a very subtle change, right? Where these droop a little bit lower, and then the webs are just bendable string, and you get this backpack, right? Okay, so it looks fine. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it's horrible, but just look, and they're comparing it against the Secret Wars thing. So as far as an image that's coming directly from the comic, I get it, right? It's a good translation and it's cheap. And there does seem to be some decent posability, which I think when you couple in with the fact that this is a full fabric suit, it's kind of like that original Spider-Man Homecoming figure from the where he has the not the text Tony Stark suit, but he just has basically pajamas on, right? And sweatpants. So you're going to get a lot of posability out of it. And he looks great in that sense. My one issue is this is being released when you've got the video game 2 symbiote Spider-Man look. Now, granted, that is $310 plus shipping and tax. So it's a much more expensive figure. It's not double the cost, but it's going to be a little bit more pricey. But is that really something that you want? Or is this figure something that you want when you compare it against that other figure that looks pretty incredible and has the much more intricate looking suit, and it has the Spider-Man logo looks like it's instead of being screen printed, it's actually like part of the suit sculpting and it's just painted, and the look of that thing looks much more realistic. So then the question becomes almost, are you going in for realism or do you just want this comic book look? There's nothing wrong with either of them as well, right? So I really do think for the cost, maybe it's fine. But for me, if I had to pick between this one or that Spider-Man 2 figure to get a symbiote Spider-Man at this point in time, I go with the Spider-Man 2. I'd rather pay the extra money to get something that just visually looks much more impressive. So I think this is definitely going to appeal. Again, right? Look at what they're saying: entry grade, highly articulated, but the suit, nothing really special here. It's just a black suit with a print in it. So you almost get what you pay for in that sense. So as far as Hono's going, I'm not really sold on the line yet. They haven't put out a figure that I necessarily want to. For example, that Wolverine that we just looked at, with the MCU Hugh Jackman Wolverine coming out in the yellow suit, that's going to be it, right? And it's like, do I pick up that figure and then pick up the Hono, or do I just pick up a second figure from the MCU version from Wolverine versus Deadpool to get that alternate look? When you think about that, I think I'm leaning more towards the MCU, but interesting that Hono kind of came out of nowhere with that one. Now, continuing on with figures to discuss in terms of announcements, um, that's going to bring me to one that was also unexpected, but kind of fun. And that's from Easy and Simple. If you guys have followed my channel, you know I pick up some Easy and Simple product. And this is in collaboration with 1/6 Kit with it, which is their General's Armoury line. So they previously released the Ghost figure, which they're showing in the background from Call of Duty. And right now we're getting the Captain John Price. It's not the first company that's done John Price, right? We've seen other companies do it, but Easy and Simple. And I'll tell you, this helmet was a nightmare to put together, right? And so I'm assuming this is going to be more of the same. It's super delicate. If you touch it just the right way, it's going to fall apart on you. So you have to use glue dots and the like to just keep everything together. But once the figures are fully assembled, they're pretty impressive. So we're getting a continuation of the line, which is Captain John Price. Look, this is a day one for me in terms of orders, right? This looks awesome. It is a military figure, so yes, it's kind of assembling kit bashes, but you're getting that to go along with the Ghost, with the Stogie, and look at the detail on the rifle and even the detail on the arms. It's a great looking release. Now, contrary to, or actually, unlike some of their other figures that are very intensive to put together, these are a little bit more accommodating because they're based on video games, and right there, it's almost like a rapid response. I like the rifle. I like the look. Here's the thing with these. As we look at them, right, this is the look from the video game. Him with that cigar in place, right? I like the posability on these figures is awesome, right? The detail on the weapons are great. There's a lot to like here. The thing is, right, this quad MVG system is also really nice, but I don't know that I'm going to get this figure to show him with the quads, because part of the appeal is to get the character from the video game. So the fact that Easy and Simple is doing this, it's awesome. Just be prepared. If you do get these, they take some time to put together. Just be patient, right? Once they're together, visually, they're going to be some of the most stunning 6-scale figures you have. And you're going to be amazed at the level of detail that you're getting for a relatively good deal. So, well, they're not Hot Toys, they're not Marvel, they're not DC, they're not Star Wars. If you're a fan of Call of Duty, I think this is a must. So for me, this is definitely one that I'm going to order. And again, when I tell you, I'm looking at figures that are a little bit different, when it comes to my military collecting, this is definitely one of those cases where this figure is a little bit different, and I'm starting to kind of have visions of putting the team together, and hopefully General's Armoury continues to do that and give us all these pieces. So here's a great shot, right? This is literally what you're going to get. You're going to get this figure and all these pieces. And look, this does not look as bad as other releases. Trust me, there are releases where this thing, the entire page is covered with accessories that you have to fit into the gear and all that. So needle nose pliers will be your friend with this. But it's an awesome release. Again, just imagine pairing these together on a display. So I have to get them. It's a great kind of surprise announcement from Easy and Simple. Now, next up, let's see. We'll do, who do we have? Before we get into our news, let's do Teddy Daniels from Present Toys. So Present Toys is an interesting company because they do a lot of wacky things. Figures that nobody's ever going to really think anybody's going to either demand or anybody's going to do. They've made some great figures. I have the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, right? They've got the Ghostbusters coming out as well, which I do have an order. And there are a bunch of other releases that they're also doing. This one came out of nowhere. And I think we saw the teaser last week, but now we got the full reveal. If watched the movie, this is based on Shutter Island, right? And Teddy Daniels is, at least at the beginning, we think he's an FBI agent that's investigating some disappearances or something that's going on in this mental institution. And then we find out later that he's actually a patient, and this is the last kind of treatment protocol that they're putting in line for him before he gets a lobotomy. Look, some of the pictures, I'm not gonna lie, they looked almost photoshopped, so I would be cautious with proceeding with this, and even though I like the present toys releases I have, just be cautious that this might not be what you're getting. Um, Other than that, though, it's a guy in a suit with a kind of funky tie. Um, the only reason you would get this figure is if you're a huge Shutter Island fan, right? If you love the movie. And that's where I get in trouble sometimes because there's so many movies that I like that sometimes it's a little bit hard to say no to these. But then I have to step back and think, is this really like a figure that I need or that's going to add to the collection? Frankly, for this one, I'm actually starting to think no. I love the movie, right? And look, the accessories are simple. You get the base, you get some alternate hands, you get a lot of paper products, and you get a gun, a revolver. Um, but I think I would almost rather have a Leonardo DiCaprio from Inception, for example, and some other characters from that movie. And I know that they've been done, to be honest. So, would Present Toys do something like that? Listen, if they're doing something like this, why not? Or and if they have done something for Inception, just let me know because that's probably something I'd be more inclined to get. But look, it's interesting that we're even getting this at this point, right? And I appreciate this is where third party, and I'm always gonna say listen, I love Hot Toys. I really love them. I love Dan Toys. I love all these licensed companies. 30 does great products. In art, I'm looking forward to getting some of their pieces in hand licensed as well. But this is where third party steps in. Who else is going to do a figure like this, right? How many of these could you possibly sell? And on the off chance, like in this case, it's not something that I'm necessarily completely sold on that I want, but on the off chance that I did want it, somebody's made it. So there's an opportunity there to pick up some obscure characters that nobody in their right mind is going to make, right? So the other one, and I know my friend Fabs from Fabs Figure is going to make fun of me for covering this one. It's 108 Toys, another third party company. I have no idea who this is, right? I think another friend in the community, Brandon, told me that this is from World of Warcraft. All right. He's got die cast metal parts. Look, 108 Toys had I got the face off figures they did. They weren't the best, but for the cost, I was actually getting the Nicolas Cage and the John Travolta from, and I don't know who else is going to make them in their right mind. If somebody else makes better figures, I'll get those. But for now, I have those two characters in my collection, and I'm happy with this. This looks pretty impressive. I mean, diecast pieces. I have no idea who this is. It's got light up LED features, a pretty nice display stand. I mean, visually it pops. So if anybody knows who this is or what the story behind this character is, let me know. This goes back to that whole idea though. Am I going to invest money in a figure that looks potentially really impressive when there's so much else going on? Like we just talked about it, right? Mighty Thor's out, the Mark 6 2.0, Avatar, the Hono figures coming out, easy and simple with their Call of Duty. So this one is like you look at it and you're like, wow, it looks cool. But unless there's a connection to the property, um, it's probably going to be a pass. But it's still, I wanted to showcase it because 108 Toys in particular, they're so random with what they do. I think they did the Dark Side right from the Snyder cut of the Justice League. Then they jumped to, I think they're doing something from what that Leonardo DiCaprio movie, the Romeo and Juliet, which is bizarre, right? It's a total 180. And then they jump from that to Face Off, and now they're jumping to this. It's like it's really hard to pinpoint them and pin them down to a particular lane. Like a company like Toys Era, we knew was doing some Marvel adjacent figures, right? Toys Battalion, Marvel adjacent. Soso is doing their own things, right? And we're going to talk about Soso a little bit in a bit as well. But 108 is just so random, and sometimes you think they're done, right? Because you don't hear from them, and now they drop this. This is kind of when it comes to the hobby, right? Hot Toys, you can almost anticipate what they're going to do. Hot Toys does surprise us from time to time, but third party, sometimes they're just random and give us the wackiest things. So this, I don't know the story about it, but look, kudos to 108 for trying something different that clearly nobody else is making because I have no idea who this is supposed to be. But look, if they can deliver something that looks like this prototype, that's pretty amazing. Um, I would expect some downgrades though. Again, the prototypes that we saw for the 108 toy, the Castor Troy and the Sean Archer from Face Off, those prototypes were much better than the ultimate product we ended up getting. So just proceed with caution when it comes to those. And then I think that's pretty much it for announcements. There was another Exo 6 announcement, which was the to Paul from Star Trek Enterprise. That line's not that particular line isn't as appealing, so I'm not going to talk about that. And I know that Jazz Inc. is talking about some additional vehicles, so once he has some more images, maybe we'll discuss that. But now I want to get into the heart of the news story, right? So actually, before we get into the J&D stuff, which I really want to talk about, I also want to talk about this little tease we got. And credit to, I don't know who, this is from Facebook. And it was dropped in one of the groups. So credit to whoever was able to take this shot. This is why, and in case you're wondering, we're seeing like the Hot Toys Deadpool here from Deadpool and Wolverine. So I thought last night, I was convinced we were going to get the drop for the Deadpool, and we ended up getting surprised with the Hono Black Symbiote Spider-Man. To me, that tells me this guy's imminent. He's about to drop, right? We already got the Hugh Jackman Wolverine. He's coming. Look, he looks awesome. The guns. I have the. I'm looking for him right now. I have the original one from the first movie. I never bothered to pick up the one from Deadpool 2. To me, they were very similar, so I didn't need to have those. I'm definitely interested in getting this one. Swords look great, right? The pockets are a little bit different. The suit has definitely been redesigned. Might be a little subtle where we don't notice, but it looks pretty nice. I think the detail work on the swords in particular, right? Those look awesome. And then he still has the same detail. So the suit hasn't evolved that much. And I don't know that there was that much to fix, but it's still pretty cool looking overall, right? And now we're getting into the statue, but this is kind of interesting to me just because it's telling me that this is coming. And now, spoiler alert. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to say it because I think a lot of people are. I already got my tickets for this, and a lot of people are really excited for this movie, so I'm not going to ruin it for anything. But there are some rumored cameos and actually kind of longer parts of the movie. So there are characters that are rumored to be coming in that I don't want to ruin for anybody because I think part of the surprise of this movie is they haven't given us much. So it'll be interesting to see how things kind of pan out in the long run. So that is one little tidbit. So Deadpool from Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm pretty sure if we don't get it this weekend, I'm sure we're going to get it next week. I mean, how much more can they delay it unless they want to wait until release date for the movie itself? But we're seeing it on display now, so I'm pretty sure that's coming soon. But now let's get into actually no, let's get into the big meaty story first. All right, and this is J&D. So look, let's start with my thoughts on J&D. J&D, and in particular their Kojun Works line, came in and they were going to take the 6-scale world by storm, right? There was a lot of hyperbole in the announcement. It's going to be the best figure you've ever seen. It's going to be the most innovative technology. They dropped the Joker, and the first thing was, why are we getting another Heath Ledger Joker, right? We've already gotten the in art at that point, a 2-pack that was wildly, praised, and people, even though there were some issues, it was a great inaugural product for in art. From a likeness perspective, it was the first kind of rooted here we've gotten to that degree. The diorama, the jail cell diorama was awesome, impressive. So we got that. And then, of course, Hot Toys followed up with the announcement of their Artisan Joker. So here we are getting another high-end Joker. So it was like, all right, you're definitely going into this market again with your own product. Fine. And then what floored everybody, and I think killed the debate in the community about J&D, was the cost. They had 2 versions, or they had a couple of versions. And one of them included 2 dogs from the last fight scene in The Dark Knight. Very, very limited accessories, no diorama pieces. And they were asking 2,000 plus for that figure, for the all-in figure. And even the cheapest one was at about $1,000. I'm sorry. I know that's custom level pricing, and I know that J&D has specifically said they're targeting a different demographic, sort of the higher end collectible. In your 6-scale community, if you wanted to get that, more power to you. God bless. That's a lot of money to invest. And even for me, like picking up as many pieces as I do, putting all that money into one item, especially a 6 scale figure, it's a lot to ask. So that came and went. And then they followed up with the announcement of the Dark Knight Bat Armory with a Bruce Wayne. And this is where it got me. The Bruce Wayne had no rooted hair. It was a sculpted head sculpt. And then the Batman figure that they gave us was actually a statue. So you could put in it was like a power pose. And then the Armory looked fine, right? But they started charging same thing, right? $2,500 for that and it's like, for what? For a statue? If you're gonna give me a Batman figure, give me a Batman figure. Don't give me a Batman statue. I would counter that Hot Toys did it right with the Dark Knight Rises Armory, where the posable figure was the Batman, and the statue they gave you, instead of giving you like a bust, they gave you that statue of Bruce Wayne with the arms folded. That looked pretty cool. But at least you were getting the figure. You were getting a fully posable Batman figure. And of course, it felt like there were a couple of videos that were made after the pre-order date that to me just reeked a little bit of desperation. Like the sales weren't what they expected. And then, of course, Hot Toys popped in with their 2.0 version of that same set with a Bruce Wayne, with a bat suit, and the Armory for a quarter of the price, right? $500, $600. Sure, that's expensive, but compared to the J&D, it's like, all right, why am I paying the J&D prices when I can actually get a posable Batman here and a posable Bruce Wayne for half the cost, or for a quarter of the cost? So J&D followed up with, now we're going to do rooted hair. We figured out how to make it look great. Okay, pre-orders back up. I mean, who are you competing with there? So that's been kind of the trajectory that Kojun Works has been taking. And to me, I thought there's no real interest in the community at this point, right? They've kind of shot themselves in the foot with the price point they're coming in at. Sure, they're probably selling out and appealing to certain collectors, but I think for most 6 scale collectors, it's a lot. We're always talking cost and the increasing cost of these figures. So to come in at that high of a price point, I think InArt had already kind of pushed that envelope. This didn't just push it, it burst through it to a point where I don't think a lot of people can follow. So I thought they were done. Now, what we're here to discuss is this whole Harry Potter announcement. So interestingly enough, InArt is also doing Harry Potter figures, right? And they've already put the 3 kids out for orders, right? So they've got Harry, Ron, and Hermione. I ordered all 3 from them as a fan of the product, of the property. And they've also teased that they're doing Dumbledore. They may be doing Snape, and they may be doing Hagrid. So they've also got a line that they're developing. And they did say they're focusing very much on that first movie, and then we'll see what happens. And of course, this was a bit of a surprise. J&D jumps in to say, we're also doing Harry Potter. I don't know. When you go back and look at some of the conversations that InArt has had regarding this particular license and IP, they've always said the demand isn't as huge as some of the other things, right? It's not Marvel, it's not DC. There's a demand, but it's not their biggest seller. So my first question is there room in the market for 2 competing lines, right? And then, of course, given the limited appeal of the line, is there room in this market for somebody who's going to come in charging, let's say, because they're smaller characters, let's say they do 1,000 per figure or 1,500. That's still a ton of money to ask. And granted, we haven't seen what the pricing is on these, so I'll be interested to see where they come in with that. But is there really a market for that? And the first thing too not the first thing. I've had a lot of first things here, but the other thing that comes to mind is you look at the license. And look, I know a lot of people think InArt is the best company out there, or not the best, but they're doing really great things, and I agree. But one of the limiting factors, I think, for InArt and any other company at this point are licenses. And one of the things we've seen is Disney, apparently, from all the conversations, is very tight with their license. And once they have a partner that they're really happy with, they're not inclined to share that license with anybody else, right? John from InArt has repeatedly said that when he's asked, what about Star Wars? What about Marvel? He says, can't do it because Hot Toys has that license. And think about what Hot Toys has. Hot Toys, as a Disney partner, now has Star Wars, which is a huge hit, Marvel, which continues to be a big seller for them. And then what else? Avatar, right? They're doing Avatar. Not that many people have requested that, but they've got that. And then a lot of people are saying, well, can we get Aliens figures? Can we get Predator figures? That's all 20th Century Fox, which now falls under the Disney umbrella. So that's all Disney, right? And then you look at even something like John Wick. InArt had mentioned that they've been negotiating for John Wick, and something happened with the contract where things fell through. So imagine then turning to Hot Toys, and Hot Toys is giving us a John Wick figure. So Hot Toys has definitely cornered some key licenses that are going to keep them going for a while. So what's left? And that's the Warner Brothers license. And it seems like Warner Brothers has no problem sharing that license with everybody. J&D has it now for 6 scale. InArt has it for 6 scale. We know Hot Toys still has it for 6 scale because they're still doing DC figures. And Jazz Inc., now that they're doing 6 scale of not just vehicles, but they're also doing 6 scale figures, has it. So Warner Brothers is almost like it's a free for all. And of those licenses, obviously DC is one of the biggest one that they have. And then what else is left? Right. InArt is doing Lord of the Rings, which is kind of Warner Brothers' new line, right? So that's what they've kind of taken out, and Harry Potter, which is another Warner Brothers license, and they're also doing the Dune figures, right? So they've kind of picked and selected some established franchises and some franchises that they think might go somewhere. So it looks like J&D is doing the same, and they're jumping into Harry Potter. So just curious that this is what they're choosing to kind of put in their hope on. And look, they're announcing that they're literally going to do 3 figures at once. They're going to release all the kids. So there's going to be a packaged. They're saying you can get them all in one set. Only 800 pieces worldwide. Silicone and rooted hair. Multiple hand parts. All right, that's what we would expect. Sold on both the official website and partnership series. So I'm curious if this means they have a worldwide license, because that would be something interesting to see. So look, and then it says the most detailed items for Harry, Ron, and Hermione. It's again hyperbole. We've seen what some of those are. They're basically they showed a ticket, they showed the animals, right? The owl and the cat and all that. InArt's doing the same thing. So what's really setting them apart? And then they do have, this is interesting, this Type A Harry Potter Quidditch version, which is limited to 200 pieces. That's only going to be sold on the J&D website. I'm tempted, but again, if they come in and say that's $2,000 or $1,500 or even $1,000, it's going to be a no-go, right? I'm not going to spend that much money on something like this. But it's interesting to me that they're going so deep in this line, and they're already teasing next year. You're going to get Lucius Malfoy, Hagrid, and Snape. So Malfoy is interesting because it doesn't seem that InArt's going to do that, or maybe InArt is going to do that. Well, yet to be determined, but they're definitely proceeding with this. What really is interesting, and I'm sorry to kind of, you probably tuned out at this point, but what's interesting to me is this light version, this Kojun Works light, that's supposed to be, instead of a silicone based head, it's going to be a PVC head sculpt. And at first I thought maybe they're talking power pose, but it looks like it's a figure and they're just doing the head, and instead of doing sculpted rooted hair, it's going to be sculpted hair, and that this is going to be a more affordable thing. So to me, the introduction of this Kojun Works light thing is an indication that they realize there's a problem with just going for this higher end market, and they need to try to tackle what that lower market is. I'm going to be curious to see what the price of that Kojun Works light line is, because if it's on par with InArt, I might decide to take a plunge and try one of their figures, especially if they're going to do a figure like Malfoy that InArt's not going to do. But again, to me, it just seems like a polite way or a nice way of them saying, we kind of messed up on the original pricing. We're not going to admit that. We're still going to have that higher tier, but we're also trying to appeal to a more mass product, mass market, which is exactly what they're saying here. They're going to appeal to a mass market. Apparently, these Harry Potter figures are about to launch in July. So this upcoming month. So be interesting to see where it goes. Is this enough to revive some interest in J&D? And again, does J&D maybe just need to sell 200, 800 pieces? Is that all they need to sell to consider this line to be a hit for them? I think we'll have to see, but it's just interesting to me, kind of the path Kojun Works is taking with this. Whereas InArt, I know we complain about some of their deliveries and some of the issues that aren't necessarily related to the figures themselves. But it'll be just interesting to see where things go. So look, that was kind of the most unexpected news story that came out this week, because I remember it came out of nowhere, and I should have known, because John was always playing things from InArt, was playing things a little close, and he was being a little tight-lipped with some licenses, and he kept mentioning we know there's other companies coming in. So what I can imagine is that he knew J&D was coming, and that they were going to come with these figures, because essentially right now, who's their competition? It's not Star Ace, it's Inart when it comes to this license. So curious how this develops. We'll just see. And then the last thing, and this is just a quick one before we go. Um, so I'm a big Soosoo Toys fan. So Soso is going all in on this bug people kind of line. I know nothing about it, right? I think these are Common Rider. We saw Hot Toys do a couple of them, and I think these are alternate versions, older versions. I have no idea. What's interesting to me with these figures is, look, they look cool. No interest for me whatsoever in getting them. But I'm almost like, where are your other figures? Because Soso had teased they were doing X-Men figures, right? They had that when Present Toys released their Cyclops and their Magneto. Soso was quick to put up this picture that showed all the images of the X-Men set, and they had, I think it was Jean Grey, Professor X, and their own Magneto and Wolverine coming soon, and that was months ago. So is that just a case of six skill game, right, that we're in, where it's that gamesmanship where one company's trying to one up the other company and tell people, don't buy, don't put your money into this because we've got our own products coming? Could be that. But for me, I'm just like, where are those, right? I'm sure there's an appeal for these. Obviously, they keep making them. They've made a ton of them, and they're continuing to release them. So the only thing that I'm questioning Soso on is, you've got all these other products. They even teased Dr. Manhattan from the Watchmen line a while ago, and it's like, did you just abandon that line, or are you going to continue doing it? Balls in Soso's court at this point. So just curious where they're going with things. Again, no interest in that, and that's why I didn't really cover this in the announcements. If you're interested, they're up for pre-order, but not anything that's super crazy. So that was pretty much it. So a packed week. If you're still with me, thanks for putting up with me for a little bit. And then look, next week, I should have a retrospective showcase going out. I'm waiting for the Dune figures from Kit. Both shipped finally, Gurney and Duke Leto, and then we'll see what else drops, right? Because it's been this week was kind of crazy in terms of all the announcements, all the releases. So we'll see what next week brings in store for us. So as always, thanks for watching, and if you are enjoying the content, please consider dropping a like, comment, or subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.